Welcome back to What Was That? So after the mental storm, I actually experienced a reason, or I came to the real understanding of the saying that people don't want to sit with their thoughts, and understood exactly what that meant. Because when we are alone with our thoughts and we actually stay with our thoughts and move through our thoughts, there are feelings underneath our thoughts. I'm going to go back to also saying that where I had previously said about the ego, talking about ego, ego is a form of self-preservation, and it keeps us in a state of fear, and it keeps us tied to stories that we tell ourselves that remind us of the fears and keep us cycling in this vicious cycle of fear and not moving past the fear or confronting the fear or overcoming the fear. So after going through, the thoughts and having to start dealing with the feelings, I understood I didn't necessarily have to totally relive whatever traumas from core wounds that may have been, attached to my stories and some things that were traumas. Because what happens when we have trauma, the human mind cannot handle but only so much. So what happens is the psyche splinters, okay? And when the psyche splinters, we tell ourselves, this is what we'll tell ourselves, that we feel safe enough to say what happened. And there becomes a story. It's not actually what truly happened. So all of this process, I actually had to find the gap, find the missing piece, find what I had buried deep down that actually happened for things. And that's not necessarily saying that I had a bunch of trauma in my life. I'm just saying, though, that as we deal with things that created fears, we have attached that to a story. And that story keeps us in fear and keeps us in anything that reminds us of something like that. Okay, well, remember what happened then? And so we don't do things. So this journey, I started, instead of running from fear, I started charging into it. I started going into my fears so that because I knew that this gave me that understanding that fear is a self-imposed limitation. Yes, something may have initially caused that fear in us, but it's our choice to stay in that story. Once we have that understanding that we can go through the story and then allow ourselves to, without reliving it, kind of own what truly took place, we are no longer having to attach that story. So it is a very freeing and liberating thing to understand that you can overcome your fears, that you can absolutely charge into your fears and understand that that's a limitation that you set upon yourself. You're still choosing the story, you're still choosing the fear. And that's okay. But you come into this, if you come into spiritual evolution and you want to evolve and you want a higher consciousness, you cannot stay in fear. You have to overcome fear. You have to eat fear for breakfast. You have to charge into those fears and understand that if you don't want that limitation, you've got to deal with the fear. That is that self-imposed limitation. So I wanted to come on here and just share that underneath thoughts are feelings. And a lot of the time, we don't want to deal with our feelings because we don't want to feel or relive some of the things that we've not been necessarily as happy with that experience or the feeling and emotion. But those feelings and those emotions are there to move you and move through you. They're not meant to be held on to. See, once you start to reconcile from the story and not relive, but own what took place, you can start to understand everything. And it's just such an amazing, amazing thing to witness and be, it gives you more motivation to keep going because you're seeing yourself, you're experiencing yourself growing. Actually, tremendous clip because you're overcoming things that were falsities. You are no longer being as limited as you were. There's still limits, and we'll go into that in more videos, but this starts to break down some of those limitations. So I wanted to come on here and say, underneath the thoughts are the feelings. And what was that? Thanks for listening.